I got loyalty, got royalty inside my DNA. I got love, peace, got war and peace inside my DNA. I got poison, pain, and joy inside my DNA.
Hello and welcome back to my channel, Fanfic Fantasy. Join us as we delve into the realms of fanfiction and fantasy, bringing you the best stories and discussions. Today, we're kicking off the third part of our series, What If a Player Was in JJK with Level Up System? If you enjoy this video, please give it a like and subscribe for more content in the future. The author of this story is Deck302005. From Wattpad, all the relevant links are in the description. Feel free to say hello to the author on their profile. Now, let's dive into the fanfic. Kenzo had not been prepared for this. He may have been prepared for this. Gojo stood nonchalantly in the middle of the room, a playful glint in his eyes. Kenzo's mind raced, trying to comprehend how Gojo had breached his defenses and invaded his personal space. "Sensei, what the hell are you doing here?" Kenzo demanded, his irritation evident. Gojo chuckled, his aura of carefree mischief intensifying. "I just thought I'd drop by. No need to be so uptight, Kenzo-kun. I do have a spare key, you know." Kenzo's disbelief transformed into a scowl. "A spare key? You can't just barge into people's homes like this." Gojo shrugged, utterly unapologetic. "Well, I just did. Plus, it's not like I haven't done it before." Kenzo couldn't decide whether to be furious or amused. "You need to learn some boundaries, Gojo. But where's the fun in that?" Gojo grinned, thoroughly enjoying the discomfort he'd caused. "What do you want?" Kenzo said, looking at his sensei, to which Gojo just replied, "Can I not just visit my favorite student?" Kenzo's expression told Gojo he didn't believe him at all. Kenzo's eyes narrowed, his skepticism evident. "Favorite student? I doubt you have such a thing." Gojo leaned casually against a wall, his playful demeanor not faltering. "Oh, come on, Kenzo-kun. You know you hold a special place in my heart." Kenzo crossed his arms, clearly not buying Gojo's act. "Cut the crap, Gojo. You don't just show up uninvited without a reason." Gojo's grin widened. Fine, you caught me. I do have a reason for dropping by." Kenzo sighed, expecting something ridiculous. "Out with it, then. It's about your abilities," Gojo said, suddenly turning serious. Kenzo's expression shifted to one of curiosity. "What about my abilities?" Gojo stepped closer, his gaze intense. "You've got potential, Kenzo-kun. But it's raw, untamed. I think it's time we refine it, polish it, make you into an even more formidable Jujutsu sorcerer." Kenzo remained stoic. "And why would you be so invested in that? Don't tell me you've suddenly developed a mentorship streak." Gojo chuckled. "Think of it more as an investment. The stronger you become, the more interesting things get around here. Plus, having an ace like you in my arsenal doesn't hurt. You might just want someone to fight with." Kenzo raised an eyebrow. "So, what's the plan then? More intense training?" "You half right," Gojo said, smiling before looking at Kenzo and saying, "I understand your ability a bit more, and it seems to work like curse energy to some degree, so it should be possible." "What should be possible?" Kenzo asked, to which Gojo smiled, saying, "A domain expansion." Kenzo's eyes narrowed, a mix of confusion and suspicion settling in. "Domain expansion? Are you suggesting that I can perform a domain expansion, even though I only learned about its existence a week ago, give or take?" Gojo nodded, his grin widening. "Exactly. Your technique is like that of a video game character, isn't it? So it should work. You just need to refine it, shape it into something more potent. With the fact that your technique seems to share an affinity for cursed energy, it's a logical step." Kenzo crossed his arms, still skeptical. "I've heard of domain expansion. It's not something that's easy to achieve, even for seasoned Jujutsu sorcerers. And you asking me to do it?" Gojo chuckled. "That's true, but you're not an ordinary student, are you? Besides, with my guidance, we can accelerate the process. Think of it as a shortcut to power." Kenzo sighed. "Why do I get the feeling that shortcut involves a lot of pain and suffering?" Gojo's eyes gleamed mischievously. "Well, you're not entirely wrong. But trust me, the results will be worth it. A domain expansion can turn the tide in a battle, and it'll make you a force to be reckoned with. Plus I get to annoy you for a few months," Gojo said, whispering the last part to himself. "Say what?" Kenzo said, looking at Gojo's reply. "Nothing." Despite his reservations, Kenzo couldn't deny the allure of such power. "Fine, let's do it. But I have conditions." Gojo leaned in, intrigued. "Conditions? This should be interesting. What are they?" Kenzo's expression turned serious. "No more surprise visits to my room. And you owe me an explanation about the weird occurrences around this school." "No promises," Gojo said, smiling a bit. Kenzo shot Gojo a deadpan look. "Seriously?" Gojo's grin widened. Okay, I'll try to control my impulses. And as for the weird occurrences, let's just say this school has a lot more going on beneath the surface than you might think." Kenzo shook his head, a mix of frustration and resignation on his face. I should have known it wouldn't be that easy. Gojo clapped him on the back. Where's the fun and easy, my friend? Now, let's get to work. The sooner we unlock that domain expansion of yours, the sooner you'll be turning heads in battles, and the longer you take the more I get to annoy you, so keep that in mind. Fine, what's the first step? Kenzo said, looking at Gojo, to which Gojo replied nonchalantly, I don't know. Kento's eyes narrowed. You don't know? Gojo chuckled. Yep, I have no idea. The heck do you mean? Aren't you supposed to be the strongest? So how the heck don't you know how to open a domain expansion? Kenzo said, his frustration evident. Gojo just smiled and replied, usually, all you need to do to open your domain expansion is to bring your innate technique into reality. A Jujutsu user with enough caliber to use cursed energy can manifest their innate domain into reality. By using hand seals unique to the caster, channeled cursed energy converts actual physical spaces into a user's domain, trapping their victim. But for you, my friend, with no curse energy, it might be different. Catch this, Gojo said, tossing a book toward Kenzo. Kenzo looked at the book in his hand and then glanced at Gojo. Simple domain, huh? He muttered to himself. A prompt appeared in his vision. Would you like to learn the skill simple domain? Yes, no. As Kenzo absorbed the knowledge from the book, he felt a surge of understanding. The information about the simple domain skill became a part of his own. Skill acquired. Simple domain. Simple domain is an anti-domain technique that erects a small barrier around the user to protect them from the effects of a domain expansion. Kenzo experimented with the newly acquired simple domain skill. His mana formed a circle around him, but it appeared unstable and weak. He could feel the intricacies of trying to create a defensive barrier against a domain expansion, especially without the usual curse energy that Jujutsu sorcerers typically employed. He focused, attempting to reinforce the barrier, making it more resilient. Gojo observed Kenzo's experimentation with the simple domain, his eyes assessing the structure that was gradually taking shape. So just like in a game, you have to grind it up, huh? Gojo said, looking at Kenzo's simple domain before something popped up in his mind, and he handed Kenzo another book before saying, read it. Kenzo started to read the book while Gojo was annoying him in the background. It was very hard for him to focus. Gojo continued to make random comments and jokes as Kenzo tried to concentrate on the book. You know, mastering a domain is like learning to ride a bike. Once you get it, you never forget, and you look cool doing it, Gojo said with a grin. As Kenzo delved into the book, trying to absorb the intricate details of the simple domain technique, Gojo couldn't resist being a bit of a nuisance. He playfully poked Kenzo in the side, distracting him. Hey, Kenzo, you're reading like it's some ancient grimoire. Lighten up, it's just a book, Gojo teased. Kenzo, growing increasingly annoyed, shot a stern look at Gojo. Could you please let me focus? This is important. But I am bored, Gojo said, batting his eyes at Kenzo as if trying to look adorable, to which Kenzo just looked annoyed. As Kenzo earnestly continued reading the book, Gojo seemed to find delight in persistent annoyance. He would tap Kenzo on the shoulder, making him lose his place, and then pretend it was an innocent mistake. Oops, my bad, Gojo said with a grin, as Kenzo sighed in frustration and went back to the text. Gojo continued his antics, making silly faces, pulling faces, and even whistling a tune softly. Each time Kenzo showed signs of irritation, Gojo would feign innocence. Are you sure you can handle the great responsibility of domain expansion with that serious face? Gojo mused, looking overly concerned. Kenzo, trying to maintain his composure, gritted his teeth. Gojo, I'm serious about this. Stop messing around. Gojo simply laughed. Come on, Kenzo, lighten up. It's not every day you learn something new. Kenzo's frustration reached its peak, and he threw a punch at Gojo, only to be met with an invisible barrier. It was as if an impenetrable shield surrounded Gojo, effortlessly halting Kenzo's punch. Gojo chuckled, looking amused. You've got a long way to go, my friend. But that punch, not bad. Keep practicing. It could probably have hit me if you were stronger, Gojo teased, to which Kenzo looked annoyed. That damn sensei of his had some sort of busted power that made it impossible to hit him. How is this fair? Kenzo muttered, feeling the frustration building up. He was earnestly trying to master this new skill, and here was Gojo, effortlessly dodging every attempt at a punch. Gojo's grin widened. Life isn't always fair, Kenzo. Consider this a lesson. He then handed Kenzo another book, clearly intending to continue the training. As Kenzo delved into the contents of the book, his understanding of the simple domain skill deepened. It was like pieces of a puzzle falling into place, and with each revelation, the skill seemed to evolve. Skill simple domain has leveled up x5. The notifications flashed in Kenzo's mind, indicating that he was making progress. The unstable circle around him started to gain definition, becoming more solid and controlled. He could sense the subtle changes, the strengthening of the protective barrier. So I was right. That's how it works, Gojo thought to himself upon seeing that. It seemed like this kid curse technique had the potential to be absolutely busted. And to be fair, he was here for it. Maybe he would gain an equal in due time. Take this, Gojo said, handing him a book that Kenzo took. It seemed like it was a book about curse energy control, and before he could ask Gojo more, the man was gone. Kenzo found himself alone, clutching the book Gojo had given him. As he opened it, he realized it contained detailed insights into the intricate art of curse energy control. The information was dense, and he knew it would take time to grasp the nuances. Little did he know that all the book that Gojo had given him came from the library of the Gojo clan. Gojo wanted to see how much he could improve, and so he nudged a bit toward the correct direction. Now it was all up to him to decide his fate, and Kenzo had chosen. Kenzo sighed, realizing the weight of the challenges ahead. The road to mastering his newfound abilities seemed daunting, but a spark of determination flickered in his eyes. He closed the book, ready to embark on this journey of self-discovery and power. Grinding, he muttered to himself. Well, I've got a lot of work to do. As he continued to study the arcane knowledge within the pages, Kenzo Tatsu, the once ordinary student, embraced the extraordinary path laid out before him. Little did he know, this journey into the depths of Jujutsu would not only reshape his abilities, but also the course of his destiny. Several months had passed, and Kenzo Tatsu had diligently immersed himself in the world of Jujutsu. The simple domain he had struggled to create before had evolved into a formidable shield, a testament to his growth. His understanding of curse energy had deepened, and with each passing day, he became more attuned to the mystical forces that surrounded him. Kenzo's training routine had become a seamless part of his daily life. He would practice his domain techniques, refine his mana control, and experiment with various spells and maneuvers. The once chaotic and unstable circle of energy had transformed into a well-defined barrier that could withstand even stronger attacks. In addition to mastering the basics, Kenzo had explored advanced techniques, delving into the nuances of his power. He discovered ways to manipulate the simple domain, adapting it to different situations. The invisible barrier became an extension of his will, responding swiftly to his commands. Throughout this journey, Kenzo faced numerous challenges. There were days of frustration and moments of self-doubt, but he persevered. Those days, however, were mainly due to Gojo's constant teasing. The mysterious books Gojo had provided turned out to be indispensable guides, offering insights that accelerated Kenzo's progress. Whispers of Kenzo's potential reached even the ears of the higher-ups in the Jujutsu world. They wanted to get him while he was still relatively new, but Gojo crushed all their hope of getting near Kenzo. One day, as Kenzo practiced in a secluded area, a familiar voice echoed. "Looks like you've been busy, Kenzo-kun." "I have for a few months now," Kenzo said. He looked a bit different from what he was a couple of months ago. He seemed to be in better shape, and his physique seemed to have evolved further than it had before. His stats spoke for themselves. "Status," Kenzo said, wanting to check his stats as of now. Level 100. Fatigue, full. Job, Shadow Monarch. Titles, The Player, Jujutsu Sorcerer. HP, 22,070. MP, 18,295. Strength, 160 plus 40. Vitality, 140 plus 40. Agility, 160 plus 40. Intelligence, 150 plus 40. Sense, 160 plus 40. Remaining points, 317 plus 285. Gold, 1 million. Kenzo's eyes then went toward the skill he had gained over the few months that Gojo had been training him, along with the one he had been training in the side. Skill acquired. Simple domain. Simple domain is an anti-domain technique that erects a small barrier around the user to protect them from the effects of a domain expansion. Skill Shadow Extraction. The user is able to extract shadows from the corpses of his enemies and add them to his army. Skill Shadow Preservation. The user is able to preserve his shadows in storage and monitor them by perceiving their senses. Skill Shadow Exchange. The user is able to use shadows as portals to travel vast distances in an instant. Skill Monarch's Buff. The user is able to buff the strength of all of his active shadows by 50% in battle. Skill Stealth. The user is able to camouflage with his surroundings and hide all traces of presence, essentially turning himself both physically and magically invisible. Skill Bloodlust, the user is able to magically intimidate a target into submission. Skill Quicksilver, the user is able to increase his speed by 30% for a short burst. Skill Mutilation, the user rips a target to shreds with his daggers. Skill Dagger Rush, the user barrages a target with his daggers from all directions. Skill Teleportation. Teleportation, the user of this skill can teleport anywhere within a 150 feet radius. This skill uses 50 mana points each time it is used. Skill Purification Ball. The user creates an orb of pure raw mana and launch it toward their opponent. Skill Mana Enhancements. The user uses mana in order to strengthen themselves. Skill Name Dash. Master of Velocity. Experience the pinnacle of dash proficiency. Zoom at 100%, increase speed for 8 seconds. Cooldown 8 seconds. This might have been just a bit overwhelming to him at first. He got used to it as his system seemed to have gotten some sort of update. His skills looked rather different now, but at least he had mastered them for the most part. That wasn't all his skill, there was still the concentration skill that he had gotten as a bonus earlier on, but it didn't show on the first page. Plus he barely uses it. He also got a brand new skill that he was so happy to have. Domain Amplification is an anti-domain technique that envelops the user in their domain to neutralize any opposing curse technique or domain expansion they come into contact with. I can finally fucking bypass your goddamn infinity, Kenzo said, looking excited. I can finally let out all that pent-up frustration, Kenzo said, looking at Gojo with an annoyed look on his face. Gojo laughed, seemingly entertained by Kenzo's outburst. Well, it's about time, Kenzo-kun. Let's see what you can do now. Kenzo cracked his knuckles, ready to put his newfound skills to the test. The training and frustration seemed to be reaching a boiling point, and the prospect of finally countering Gojo's seemingly invincible techniques brought a spark of determination to his eyes. In the blink of an eye, Gojo and Kenzo found themselves in a space that seemed detached from the regular world. No bustling students, no echoing footsteps, just an eerie silence. "What's this place?" Kenzo asked, glancing around. "Where I will show you the gap between us," Gojo said with a cocky smile. "Try it, bastard," Kenzo said as his hands became covered with a blue energy. He had activated his special skill, and with a smile on his face, he rushed toward Gojo at full speed. Gojo stood his ground, an almost bored expression on his face as Kenzo approached with incredible speed. The air around them seemed to buzz with anticipation. Kento threw a punch, aiming directly at Gojo's chest. The blue energy surrounding his fist crackled with power. Gojo effortlessly sidestepped the attack, appearing beside Kento as if he had never moved. "Too slow," Gojo remarked, his voice carrying a hint of amusement. He tapped Kenzo lightly on the shoulder before gracefully evading another series of strikes. The blue energy around Kenzo's hands vanished as a bunch of shadowy figures started to form. The shadows converged into a multitude of figures, each holding a radiant blue orb in their hands. The orbs pulsated with concentrated energy, and as they surged forward, they created an ethereal display against the void. Gojo's eyes widened upon seeing Kenzo's shadow soldier. It was the first time he saw them, and Kenzo's technique looked so similar to his technique. His eyes glinted with interest as he prepared for the incoming onslaught. The figures attacked simultaneously, unleashing a torrent of blue energy toward Gojo. In response, Gojo's movements became a blur as he gracefully dodged, weaved, and countered. He seemed to dance amidst the shadows, effortlessly avoiding the onslaught. Kenzo had decided to strategically shift places with his shadow, bringing him face to face with Gojo. He launched a punch with determination, aiming to catch Gojo off guard. However, Gojo, ever perceptive, had anticipated the maneuver. In a fraction of a second, Kenzo found himself engulfed in a sudden burst of intense red energy. The impact sent him hurtling backward, the force of the attack evident in the way his body recoiled. The reddish glow lingered for a moment, marking the point of impact. Gojo strolled out of the remnants of their clash, a cocky grin playing on his lips. "Not bad, Kenzo. But let's be real, you're still a long way from catching up to me. You are far from my level, and yet you say you will beat me. We are just getting started," Kenzo said as he started to use mana enhancement. Even though he had more strength and around the same speed as Gojo, he didn't feel like he was near his level. Matter of fact, he felt like he was barely grazing that level. This had showed Kenzo that someone's stats didn't really tell him much about their power, as their curse technique can be broken as fuck. Like this goddamn cheat named Satoru freaking Gojo. Like, come on. The fuck you mean he has an invisible barrier, and if that isn't broken enough he can mindfuck you against your will with his domain expansion. Kenzo, however, didn't care about all those broken hacks as he pulled his stats and decided to do something very stupid. Level 100. Fatigue, full. Job, Shadow Monarch. Titles, The Player, Jujutsu Sorcerer. HP, 28,370. MP, 23,545. Strength, 200 plus 40 Vitality. 200 plus 40. Agility, 200 plus 40. Intelligence, 200 plus 40. Sense, 200 plus 40. Remaining points, 87 plus 285. Gold, 1 million. Kenzo's body surged with newfound power as he closed the distance between him and Gojo. His muscles felt more responsive, and there was an energy coursing through him that he hadn't felt before. His speed was a testament to his growth. With a swift motion, Kenzo unsheathed the dagger, his domain amplification now focused on the blade. It glowed with a blue aura, and Kenzo felt the surge of power flowing through it. He was determined to test Gojo's limits and show that he could close the gap between them. Gojo, sensing the change in Kenzo's approach, turned to face him. The air crackled with tension as Kenzo lunged forward, the dagger aimed at Gojo with deadly precision. This time, he was ready to push the boundaries of their clash further. Kenzo moved with incredible speed, leaving afterimages in his wake as he dashed in a blur around Gojo. The air crackled with the intensity of his movements. However, Gojo's eyes, sharp and focused, followed Kenzo effortlessly. It was as if Gojo could predict Kenzo's every move. Kenzo, despite his newfound speed, felt a tinge of frustration. Gojo's mastery over combat was evident as he effortlessly kept up with Kenzo's rapid maneuvers. The clash between them was turning into a dance of speed and precision, each move calculated and countered. Undeterred, Kenzo continued his assault, trying to find an opening in Gojo's defenses. The white-haired sorcerer remained calm, a smirk playing on his lips as he navigated Kenzo's onslaught with almost casual ease. The air around them hummed with the intensity of the battle, and Kenzo was determined to break through Gojo's defenses and make his mark. The Red Knight materialized at Kenzo's command, a formidable figure clad in crimson armor. It swung its weapon at Gojo with menacing force, but Gojo met each strike with calculated precision. Surprisingly, the Shadow Soldier endured Gojo's counterattacks, persisting in its relentless assault. Gojo's eyebrows furrowed slightly at the unexpected resilience of the Summoned Knight. It was clear that Kenzo's abilities were evolving, and Gojo was forced to adjust his strategy to counter the unyielding shadow entity. The clash between the Red Knight and Gojo intensified, each strike echoing through the empty space where they battled. In a dazzling display of tactical acumen, Kenzo swiftly shifted the positions of his summoned entities. As Gojo launched attacks, anticipating the movements of the Red Knight, Kenzo utilized his whapping skill to swap the locations of the Knight and other shadow soldiers. The result was a bewildering dance of shadows, causing Gojo's strikes to land on unintended targets. "Isn't this interesting?" Gojo said with a smile, his hands enveloped in a vibrant blue energy that seemed to possess an irresistible force, drawing everything in its vicinity toward him. The very fabric of the battlefield distorted as if acknowledging the sheer power emanating from Gojo's hands. Kenzo swiftly teleported away, evading the gravitational pull of Gojo's overwhelming energy. He moved deftly from tree to tree, strategically positioning himself to launch his next attack. Kenzo unleashed a relentless assault, attacking Gojo from every angle. Shadow soldiers materialized around them, creating a chaotic battlefield. Kenzo aimed to exploit Gojo's difficulty in perceiving individual mana by dispersing it widely, making it harder for Gojo to pinpoint his location and predict his moves. The skirmish turned into a dynamic dance, with Kenzo using his speed and the Shadow Soldier's unpredictability to keep Gojo on his toes. As Kenzo's onslaught continued, Gojo's expression remained calm, almost amused. He effortlessly dodged and countered each attack, his movements flowing seamlessly. His eyes, concealed behind the blindfold, seemed to anticipate Kenzo's every move. Despite the chaos of the battlefield, Gojo's composure remained unshaken. "Interesting tactics," Gojo remarked, a playful smile on his face. The relentless assault only seemed to fuel his enjoyment of the battle. He responded with precision and ease, countering the shadow soldiers and evading Kenzo's attacks with minimal effort. "I will punch you even if I have to get beat for it," Kenzo said, rushing toward Gojo. Kenzo's determination was palpable as he charged toward Gojo. Each step resonated with his resolve to land a blow on the seemingly invincible sorcerer. Despite the odds, Kenzo pressed on, fueled by a tenacity that bordered on recklessness. Gojo, still wearing that enigmatic smile, braced himself for the impending strike. He seemed almost curious, as if inviting the challenge. The The clash was imminent, a collision between an unyielding will and the overwhelming might of Gojo Satoru. The battleground was charged with an intense energy as Kenzo and Gojo engaged in hand-to-hand combat. Kenzo's movements were swift, a blur of motion as he attempted to outpace the keen reflexes of Gojo. His strikes were precise, a testament to his training and determination. However, Gojo, the seasoned sorcerer, navigated the onslaught with an almost casual grace. His movements were deliberate, each evasion executed effortlessly. As Kenzo threw punches, Gojo countered with a fluidity that spoke of years of experience. Despite Kenzo's speed and the relentless barrage of attacks, it became increasingly evident that Gojo was in control. His responses were measured, almost predictive, as if he could anticipate Kenzo's every move. The power gap between them was unmistakable, and Gojo's calm demeanor remained unshaken, his smile unwavering. In the dance of combat, Gojo's strikes began to find their mark. Each blow was calculated, sending ripples through Kenzo's defenses. It wasn't just a contest of strength and speed, it was a clash of skill, experience, and the unyielding might of a sorcerer who seemed to defy the very laws of combat. Kenzo's Red Knight emerged, adding another layer of complexity to the battle. The shadowy figure, armored and relentless, attacked alongside Kenzo, its strikes synchronized with Kenzo's movements. Gojo, faced with the dual threat, adapted seamlessly. The knight swung its sword, aiming for Gojo, who sidestepped the attack with an almost bored expression. Gojo's movements were still fluid and precise, his evasion strategies now accounting for the additional assailant. Despite the two-pronged assault, Gojo's mastery over his domain allowed him to navigate the battlefield with ease. Kenzo and his knight coordinated attacks, attempting to exploit any opening in Gojo's defenses. However, Gojo's counterattacks were relentless, his strikes aimed with a surgeon's precision. The knight, though formidable, found its blows evaded or countered by Gojo's calculated maneuvers. As Gojo kicked Igris away, what he saw coming towards seemed to be a very determined student, very willing on bashing his skull in. As Kenzo and his knight intensified their attacks, Kenzo shouted, "I hope you don't mind being jumped, Gojo-sensei." Gojo, effortlessly dodging a strike from the knight, replied with a smirk, "Try your best, Kenzo." The battlefield echoed with clashes and the sound of displaced air as the combatants moved with remarkable speed. Kenzo, fueled by determination, threw a flurry of strikes, the knight mirroring his movements. Gojo, seemingly enjoying the challenge, effortlessly avoided or parried each attack. As Kenzo swiftly switched places with his Igris, he aiming to land a punch on Gojo, and a familiar red energy emanated. In that split second, Kenzo realized, shit, before an unseen force sent him hurtling through the air. The impact echoed through the empty space, highlighting the vast difference in their strength. "So you can take a hit, huh? Guess I don't have to hold back that much," Gojo remarked with a smile. In a swift motion, he closed the distance between them, and while Kenzo was still mid-air, Gojo unleashed his powerful lapse blue. The powerful force pulled Kenzo towards him, setting the stage for Gojo to throw a punch. However, Kenzo, quick on his feet, managed to switch places with one of his shadow soldiers. Unfortunately for the shadow soldier, it was obliterated in a single, powerful hit. Gojo smiled as he saw Kenzo effectively dodge his attack. He surged forward, attacking the teen with even greater force. Kenzo, refusing to limit himself, decided to go all out. He made his knight use domain amplification while simultaneously employing his gravity technique, making himself heavier and increasing his mass. Before y'all ask why he does that, he is faster than Gojo ... Let me rephrase myself. He is faster than this restrained Gojo, and what he wants is to damage the man and nothing more. The clash between them intensified, each strike and block sending shockwaves through the air. Kenzo and Gojo were engaged in a fierce battle, their movements a blur of calculated strikes and swift dodges. Gojo utilized his signature techniques, the blue, red, and the blue attracted objects toward him, the red repelled them. Kenzo, determined to hold his ground, employed his own skills. His gravity manipulation allowed him to alter the mass of objects, making them denser or lighter. He danced between the effects of Gojo's techniques, leveraging his understanding of physics and his technique. Gojo lunged forward, a barrage of punches aimed at Kenzo. The air crackled with each impact as Kenzo deftly blocked and dodged. He used control over gravity to push away Gojo's strikes, countering with a swift kick. Gojo, impressed, grinned. "Nice, Kenzo, but you're still not fast enough." Gojo unleashed a rapid series of blows, forcing Kenzo to focus on his agility. He evaded, anticipating each strike. As the intensity heightened, Gojo decided to escalate. He activated the blue technique, creating a gravitational pull that affected everything in the vicinity. Debris, rocks, and even dust converged toward him. Kenzo adapted, using his gravity manipulation to navigate through the swirling chaos. "What's your next move, Kenzo?" Gojo taunted, enjoying the challenge. Kenzo, maintaining his focus, summoned his Igris, which provided a buffer against the incoming onslaught. As Tigris pushed away the debris, Kenzo seized the opportunity to dash towards Gojo. "Let's see how you handle this." Kenzo unleashed a burst of gravity, making Gojo significantly heavier. The sudden change caught Gojo off guard, slowing down his movements. "Crafty," Gojo remarked, adjusting to the altered dynamics. He countered with a powerful blue technique, pulling Kenzo toward him. The collision between their forces created shockwaves, but Kenzo was ready. Switching places with his knight, Kenzo avoided the direct impact. However, Gojo adapted swiftly, utilizing his purple technique to destroy the knight. "Io," Kenzo muttered, narrowly evading the hollow purple. If that curse technique hit him, it would be a serious setback. He wouldn't die, but the damage would be significant. However, before he could dwell on it, Gojo was already behind him, ready to continue the onslaught. Kenzo wielded his mana with newfound aggression, forming it into arrows that shot toward Gojo. The blindfolded sensei, reacting swiftly, leaped backward, landing near Kenzo's shadow soldier. In a seamless move, Kenzo switched places with the soldier, appearing right behind Gojo. With a spinning ball of energy in his hands, Kenzo wasted no time. He thrust the concentrated mana directly into Gojo's guts, hoping to capitalize on the momentary disorientation. Without wasting a second, he rushed toward him before throwing the strongest punch that he could muster. He may or may not have put all his pent-up aggression into that punch. Kenzo felt the hit land as he saw Gojo's body go back a few goddamn inches. The fuck. However, he just jumped away from Gojo. Kenzo scowled at the sight of Gojo seemingly unaffected by the explosive attack, not his attack. "Tough bastard, aren't you?" Gojo, with his characteristic grin, quipped. "You'll need more than that to put a dent in me, Kenzo. Come on, impress me." The shadowy army and Kenzo's favorite knight, Igris, launched a coordinated assault, surrounding Gojo from all sides. Gojo, however, didn't seem particularly concerned. He shifted into a defensive stance, ready to counter the impending onslaught. As the shadow soldiers and the knight closed in, Gojo swiftly moved between them, a blur of white hair and blue energy. He deftly dodged, weaved, and countered, disbanding the shadow soldiers with precise strikes. Despite their numbers, they proved no match for Gojo's overwhelming skill. Kenzo, frustrated, launched a series of swift punches and kicks, aiming to overwhelm Gojo with speed and unpredictability. However, Gojo effortlessly parried and blocked every attack, his movements almost anticipatory. "You're quick, Kenzo, but you lack finesse. Speed alone won't cut it against me. I have a lot of experience." Speedy fighter, Gojo taunted, his movements fluid and controlled. Kenzo, undeterred, decided to change tactics. He utilized his gravity manipulation to make himself lighter, increasing his speed even further. He then combined this with his teleportation ability, appearing at different points around Gojo in rapid succession, launching surprise attacks. Kenzo then used his large mana supply to buff all of his strong soldier, and to buff himself. The soldiers were now strong enough to tank hit from Gojo, meaning Gojo had to try, and to that Gojo just smiled before pulling down his blindfold, and Kenzo felt something wasn't right. As Gojo pulled down his blindfold, the atmosphere shifted. A menacing aura emanated from him, and Kenzo could sense an overwhelming surge of cursed energy. The air grew heavy as Gojo uttered those dreaded words, "Hollow purple." Suddenly, a void of purple energy manifested around Gojo, creating an eerie purple dome that expanded rapidly. Kenzo, caught off guard, realized the gravity of the situation. This wasn't just a simple technique, it was one of Gojo's most potent and devastating skills. Kenzo's shadow soldiers, once formidable, were now being annihilated by the oppressive force of hollow purple. They disintegrated into nothingness as if they never existed. Even Kenzo himself felt the pull of the void, the destructive power of Gojo's technique threatening to consume everything in its path. The clash between Kenzo's condensed mana ball and Gojo's hollow purple created a cataclysmic scene. The impact echoed through the surroundings, shattering trees and tearing the very fabric of the environment. It was a clash of immense proportions, a struggle between the raw power of Kenzo's mana and the unyielding force of Gojo's hollow purple. As the two forces collided, Kenzo couldn't help but feel the sheer weight of Gojo's ability. It was relentless, like an unstoppable force of nature. However, amid the chaos, Kenzo sensed another surge of hollow purple coming from behind him. In disbelief, he turned to see another dome forming, and it was closing in fast. It dawned on him, Gojo could indeed spam this devastating technique. The realization struck him like a punch to the gut. How could he possibly contend with an opponent who could unleash such destructive power repeatedly? With a split-second decision, Kenzo poured even more mana into his spinning ball, trying to overpower the hollow purple behind him. The clash intensified, and for a moment, it seemed like Kenzo might break through. Yet, the relentless force of Gojo's technique persisted, threatening to engulf Kenzo in its annihilating grip. In the midst of this chaotic exchange, the battleground transformed into a surreal landscape of destruction, a testament to the clash between two formidable forces. "Nope, not dealing with this," Kenzo said as he teleported away from the two hollow purple, panting a bit. Kenzo's teleportation saved him from the impending threat of Gojo's relentless hollow purple onslaught. As he reappeared a distance away, a slight panting betrayed the exertion he had put into that maneuver. Gojo, ever the unyielding force, materialized in front of Kenzo with that trademark grin. "Have you run out of steam yet?" he taunted. Kenzo, catching his breath, shot back with a confident smile. "Nah, I'm just getting started. Meanwhile, my man look like this." "Then let's continue," Gojo said, his smile holding a hint of excitement. The next round of their intense battle was about to unfold, each move and countermove echoing through the tumultuous arena they had created. Status recovery has been used. Kenzo, catching his breath, eyed Gojo with determination. He had pushed himself to the limits, utilizing his newly acquired skills and summoning powerful shadow soldiers to aid him. The battlefield was in disarray, trees shattered and the ground scarred from the fierce clash of curses and techniques. "Now it's my turn," Kenzo muttered, a newfound energy surging through him. He accelerated toward Gojo, who welcomed the challenge with a confident stance. Their fists collided in a flurry of strikes, and Kenzo noticed that his blows were now leaving a more substantial impact. The training, the grinding, it was all paying off. Using his dagger, he kept trying to get past this bastard infinity. Kenzo summoned his knight, which now radiated a more potent aura. The combined efforts of Kenzo and his shadow soldiers seemed to put Gojo on the defensive. Each punch, each strike carried more weight, and Gojo, despite his formidable skills, had to exert himself to keep up. Yet, Gojo, ever the cunning and experienced sorcerer, adapted swiftly. He countered Kenzo's strikes with a mix of blue and red. The battlefield turned into a dazzling display of contrasting energies, with Kenzo persistently pushing forward and Gojo expertly deflecting and countering. Kenzo, taking a risk, infused his attacks with a unique combination of mana and gravity manipulation. Each punch carried a gravitational force, making them harder to predict and evade. Gojo, impressed by the creativity, still managed to hold his ground, his eyes gleaming with the thrill of the battle. Kenzo rushed toward Gojo, intending to hurt this blindfolded man as much as possible. Using domain amplification was nice and all, but it was a lot harder to use his techniques. Something, however, felt wrong. With a swift hand movement, he unleashed a torrent of red energy. "Oh, that's why," Kenzo said as he realized that he was about to get fucked. However, with his quick thinking and the fact that he was decently smart, he used his enhanced speed and teleportation, evaded the deadly energy. "The fuck? That almost hit me," Kenzo said, to which Gojo, who seemed to have come back to his senses, said, "You supposed to get hit, dummy, it's a fight." Time skipped 2 minutes. The fight reached a crescendo, both combatants giving their all. Kenzo felt the strain, his mana reserves depleting, but he refused to yield. Gojo, ever the mentor, observed and tested his student, gauging how far Kenzo had come. The clash of their abilities echoed in the clearing, a testament to the intensity of their training and the growth Kenzo had achieved. As the battle raged on, Kenzo couldn't help but revel in the challenge. As the battle unfolded, Gojo, with an almost playful demeanor, intensified his assault. His movements became a blur, a dance of calculated strikes and overwhelming power. Kenzo, despite his best efforts, found himself increasingly on the defensive, struggling to keep up with the sheer speed and skill of his sensei. Gojo, his blindfold now removed, displayed an unprecedented level of prowess. He effortlessly countered Kenzo's attacks, reading them as if they were written in slow motion. Each of Kenzo's strikes seemed anticipated, leaving him vulnerable to Gojo's precise and devastating counterattacks. "Come on, Kenzo," Gojo taunted, his voice carrying over the clash of blows. "You've got potential, but you're holding back. You need to grasp your innate technique and bring it to reality. It's the key to unlocking your true strength." Kenzo, gritting his teeth, knew that Gojo was right. The concept of an innate technique, a unique power that resonated with one's soul, was something Kenzo had been struggling to fully understand and manifest. Gojo continued to press the attack, not relenting for a moment. "Your mana is strong, but you need to shape it, give it a form. What's your technique, Kenzo? What is it that defines your existence in the world of curses?" In the midst of the onslaught, Gojo's words echoed in Kenzo's mind. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, focusing on the core of his being. Images and sensations flooded his mind, a swirling vortex of gravity, an intricate dance of shadows. He felt a connection, a resonance with these elements. There was something in there, something looking at him. With each impact from Gojo's strikes, Kenzo felt an unusual force, as if he was being drawn into the very essence of Gojo's blows. The gravitational pull was disorienting, making it challenging for Kenzo to maintain his footing. The battlefield became a dance of forces, with Gojo orchestrating the flow of gravity in his favor. Kenzo, realizing that a direct confrontation might not be enough, summoned his loyal knight to join the fray. The blue energy enveloped the knight, and with a gesture from Kenzo, it charged towards Gojo, its attacks a manifestation of Kenzo's formidable mana control. The knight swung its weapon with precision, creating a whirlwind of energy that forced Gojo to shift his focus. Kenzo, in tandem with his knight, exploited the distraction, using his mana to create additional illusions and unpredictable movements. The battlefield became a canvas of shadows and swirling energies, each move designed to keep Gojo on his toes. Gojo, however, responded with his characteristic calmness. His movements were fluid, effortlessly dodging and countering the attacks from both Kenzo and the summoned knight. The clash of their energies echoed in the space, creating an intense atmosphere. Amidst the exchange of blows, Kenzo strategized. He knew that a head-on assault might not be enough against Gojo's overwhelming skills. Instead, he focused on diversifying his attacks, using mana-enhanced strikes, teleportation, and shadow manipulation to keep Gojo off balance. As Kenzo switched between offensive and defensive maneuvers, Gojo observed with keen interest. Your strategy is commendable, Kenzo. But remember, true strength lies not just in variety but in mastering the basics. The words lingered in the air as the battle unfolded. Kenzo's knight, despite its impressive attacks, faced a challenge in landing a decisive blow against Gojo's agile defenses. Yet, Kenzo persisted, refining his techniques with each passing moment. The battle between Kenzo and Gojo reached a fever pitch. The air crackled with the intensity of their clash, and the surroundings bore the scars of their relentless exchanges. But there was something peculiar about Gojo's curse energy. No matter how fiercely Kenzo attacked, Gojo's reservoir seemed bottomless. Kenzo, fueled by determination and the desire to prove himself, unleashed a barrage of attacks. Each strike was imbued with his potent mana, but Gojo effortlessly countered, dodging and parrying with an almost nonchalant grace. Despite Kenzo's best efforts, Gojo's curse energy remained resilient, as if there was an infinite well from which he drew. In the midst of their battle, Gojo's eyes gleamed with an uncanny confidence. He seemed to be gauging Kenzo's potential, pushing him to the limits to see how he would adapt. Kenzo, on the other hand, felt the strain of the relentless fight. The gap in their experience and power became increasingly apparent. As Kenzo attempted to land a decisive blow, Gojo's curse energy surged, creating a defensive barrier that repelled the attack effortlessly. It was as if Gojo's very presence disrupted the natural flow of the fight, leaving Kenzo grappling with an opponent who seemed impervious to fatigue. Despite the odds, Kenzo refused to yield. He kept pushing himself, attempting to unlock new facets of his innate technique. The battlefield became a chaotic dance of shadows and energy, with Kenzo desperately seeking an opening. Gojo's mastery over the blue technique became evident as he smoothly executed it, pulling Kenzo toward him with an irresistible force. Before Kenzo could fully grasp what was happening, the white-haired wielder of cursed techniques initiated a relentless barrage of strikes. Blows rained down on Kenzo like a tempest. Each punch and kick was delivered with precision and speed that left little room for evasion. Kenzo, caught in the vortex of Gojo's assault, struggled to find an opening to counter or even defend. The impact of Gojo's strikes reverberated through Kenzo's body. Each hit felt like a seismic shock, testing the limits of his endurance. The relentless assault made it difficult for Kenzo to formulate a strategy or mount any form of retaliation. In the midst of the assault, Gojo's voice cut through the chaos. You can't just rely on strength, Kenzo. Adapt, understand, and find your own rhythm in the fight. However, the beating continued. Gojo's movements were a blur, and Kenzo found himself desperately trying to block, dodge, or deflect the incoming attacks. It was a struggle against overwhelming force and unmatched skill. Gojo's enjoyment in the fight was palpable. His movements became almost playful, as if he were testing the limits of Kenzo's endurance and resilience. With each strike, he seemed to be pushing Kenzo closer and closer to the brink, exploring the boundaries of his student's capabilities. The white-haired master of curse techniques exhibited an almost ethereal grace in his combat, effortlessly blending precision and power. Kenzo, on the other hand, felt the weight of every blow, each strike serving as a reminder of the vast difference in their abilities. In the crucible of the intense battle, as Kenzo neared the precipice of defeat, a revelation struck him. He had an option, either to heal himself using status recovery or to not heal himself using the status recovery, but to delve deeper into the understanding of his own power. With each moment of pain, Kenzo reflected on the intricate web of his innate technique, seeking to understand it on a profound level. He dug deep within himself, his mind retracing the steps of his training, his encounters, and the very essence of his mana. It was an introspective journey amidst the chaos of combat. The relentless assault from Gojo served as a backdrop to Kenzo's internal exploration. He focused on the core of his power, trying to grasp the nuances that eluded him until now. The realization came like a bolt of lightning. Kenzo felt a surge of energy, not just the mana he was familiar with, but something more profound. It was as if he had touched the beating heart of his innate technique. New skill acquire, domain expansion. In a sudden twist of fate, Kenzo's voice resonated with an eerie confidence amid the chaos of the battle. His proclamation, domain expansion, Shadow Monarch domain, was accompanied by a maniacal grin. The very essence of his innate technique materialized, bringing forth a palpable and imposing barrier that began to envelop the battleground. The Shadow Monarch domain unfurled, creating a distinct boundary that separated Kenzo and Gojo from the rest of the world. The atmosphere within this newly formed domain crackled with an otherworldly energy. It was a manifestation of Kenzo's growth, an assertion of his newfound mastery over his innate powers. Gojo, sensing the shift in the battlefield, halted his relentless assault. He regarded the emerging domain with a mix of curiosity and respect. The Shadow Monarch domain, a testament to Kenzo's evolution, cast an imposing shadow over the battlefield, hinting at the depths of Kenzo's potential. The air within the domain seemed charged with an intense aura, setting the stage for a confrontation that transcended the physical realm. The clash of energies between Kenzo and Gojo took on a surreal quality, as if the very fabric of reality responded to the unleashed power within the Monarch domain. It was a moment frozen in time, where two forces collided within the confines of this newfound domain, and the outcome remained shrouded in the enigmatic dance of cursed energy. Within the domain, the ground seemed to ripple as shadowy figures emerged, forming an intricate armor around Kenzo. His movements became a blur, a testament to the remarkable increase in his speed. With newfound agility, he closed the distance to Gojo almost instantaneously, leaving a trail of afterimages in his wake. As Kenzo materialized behind Gojo, his assault began. The dance between the two intensified, a symphony of teleportation and shadowy strikes. Every time Gojo aimed a punch or unleashed a technique, Kenzo seamlessly evaded by blinking out of existence, reappearing strategically to counterattack. The battlefield transformed into a chaotic ballet, shadows and flashes of movement weaving an intricate tapestry of combat. Kenzo's armor of shadows absorbed and deflected blows, and his attacks, enhanced by the Monarch domain, carried an otherworldly weight. Gojo, the seasoned sorcerer, found himself in an unfamiliar position, challenged by the rapid and unpredictable movements of his student. The Monarch domain added an extra layer of complexity to the battle, its influence altering the dynamics of the clash. Amidst the exchange of blows and the interplay of techniques, the very essence of the domain seemed to resonate with the intensity of the confrontation. It was a manifestation of Kenzo's determination and growth, a testament to his evolution as a sorcerer. Gojo, ever the perceptive sorcerer, noted the instability of Kenzo's domain. The ethereal barrier that surrounded them seemed to flicker, displaying signs of its fledgling nature. It was as if the domain, while powerful, was not yet perfected, a manifestation of Kenzo's improvised invocation. "It's interesting, but it lacks stability," Gojo remarked, his tone a blend of assessment and curiosity. His gaze remained fixated on Kenzo, observing every nuance of the unfolding battle within the Monarch domain. Kenzo, despite the instability, continued his assault. The shadowy figures moved with increased intensity, carrying out Kenzo's will within the domain. His attacks, while potent, carried an element of unpredictability, a double-edged sword that could either confound his opponent or leave him vulnerable. As Gojo analyzed the situation, he was keenly aware of the unique challenge that Kenzo's evolving abilities presented. The domain, though nascent, had already showcased its potential to reshape the dynamics of the confrontation. As Gojo unleashed a surge of power in the form of a crimson onslaught, Kenzo, ever the agile sorcerer, anticipated the attack. With a swift teleportation, he vanished from the point of impact, reappearing above Gojo in a calculated maneuver. Kenzo's descent was swift and purposeful. His foot connected with Gojo's form, and for a moment, the seasoned sorcerer found himself assailed from an unexpected angle. The domain's influence seemed to grant Kenzo a tactical advantage, his movements fluid and unpredictable within the ever-shifting shadows. Gojo, however, was not one to be caught off guard for long. Even as he absorbed the impact of Kenzo's aerial assault, there was a glint of amusement in his eyes. It was as if he welcomed the challenge, the unpredictable nature of Kenzo's newfound prowess. The battlefield within the domain continued to evolve, a theater of shadows and ethereal clashes. Kenzo's endless night, an army of shadow soldiers, and the dynamic play of teleportation created a symphony of sorcery. In response, Gojo, the venerable sorcerer, adjusted his approach, ready to unveil the next facet of his own formidable abilities. A sly grin crept across Kenzo's face as he manipulated the very fabric of his domain. Unseen orbs of raw mana materialized around Gojo, forming a chaotic constellation of potential devastation. With a thought, Kenzo triggered a synchronized explosion, the arcane blasts echoing within the confines of the shadow-laden domain. The onslaught of explosions was relentless, a cacophony of unleashed energy. Yet, even as the blasts subsided, Gojo stood tall, his form enduring the assault with an almost casual resilience. It became evident that the gravity within the domain had increased, a subtle alteration designed to impede Gojo's movements. However, the seasoned sorcerer remained undeterred. His white hair fluttered in the ethereal winds of the domain as he assessed the shifting battlefield. The gravitational force meant to hinder him did little to sway his focus. In contrast, the shadow soldiers and Kenzo himself moved with practiced agility, exploiting the domain's unique conditions to their advantage. As the tempest of their clash intensified, Gojo, with a sudden burst of energy, unleashed a full-powered red technique toward Kenzo. The pulsating crimson energy hurtled through the air with relentless speed. Kenzo, relying on the nimbleness of his monarch domain, evaded the direct impact, a mere blur of shadows as he danced away. However, Gojo, ever the strategist, anticipated the dodge. Another red technique surged forth, aiming unerringly at Kenzo's gut. The impact was visceral, sending Kenzo spiraling through the air, a puppet caught in the grip of an unseen force. The domain quivered with the aftershocks of the clash, shadows rippling in response to the intense exchange of curse energy. Amidst the chaotic dance of power, Kenzo's resilience wavered, yet the twisted joy of the battle burned brightly in his eyes. Amidst the chaotic dance of curse energy, Kenzo's voice cut through the air, a symphony of determination echoing in the chaos. "I'm not backing down, Gojo-sensei." Gojo, his eyes gleaming with a predatory glint, responded with a smirk. "Good. Guess you truly weren't all talk." The battlefield crackled with tension as they continued their deadly waltz. Kenzo, manifesting the domain, unleashed a barrage of shadows and swift strikes. "You won't break through my domain, sensei." Gojo, dodging with uncanny grace, retorted, "A domain is only as strong as its creator. Yours seems a bit shaky." Kenzo's grin widened, a touch of madness in his eyes. "I like it that way. Unpredictable." As the domain pulsed with shadowy energy, Gojo, his blindfold falling away, unleashed a torrent of blue. "Let's see how you handle this." Kenzo, teleporting between shadows, countered with a taunt, "You're too slow, sensei. Try to catch me." The air crackled with tension as Kenzo and Gojo faced off in the twisted reality of Gojo's domain. Both combatants were battered, bloodied, yet exuded an aura of unyielding determination. Gojo, his white hair tousled and his clothing showing signs of the fierce battle, grinned confidently. Kenzo, though bloodied, was far from defeated. His eyes gleamed with an unquenchable fire as he crouched into a defensive stance, shadows swirling around him. Gojo, entering the fray with a burst of speed, unleashed a flurry of strikes. Kenzo, in a dance of evasion and defense, managed to block some of the blows, but many landed with a bone-crushing impact. He however gains the chance to punch his sensei, and so he does, strengthening the power in his fist to punch him. "You're not bad, Kenzo," Gojo remarked, his voice a low rumble amid the chaos of the domain. Kenzo, panting but refusing to yield, shot back, "I'm just getting started, sensei." The clash of their bodies echoed through the domain. Gojo, employing a mixture of martial arts and curse techniques, moved with fluid grace. Kenzo, though struggling, unleashed a barrage of shadow-infused strikes. Each exchange was a dance of pain and resilience. Gojo, closing the distance between them, delivered a powerful kick that sent Kenzo skidding across the twisted terrain. Rising to his feet, blood dripping from his lip, Kenzo grinned defiantly. "Not bad yourself, sensei. But I won't fall so easily." As Gojo's body stood relatively unscathed, a triumphant smile adorned his face. With a confident stance, he summoned a surge of energy, unleashing a full-powered red technique. The force of the attack was like a tempest, slamming into Kenzo with devastating impact. The collision shattered the fragile structure of Kenzo's newly formed domain. Shadows dissipated, and the twisted reality crumbled around them. As Gojo reappeared where Kenzo's body landed, the once defiant teenager seemed to have been overpowered. His form lay still on the fractured ground, seemingly knocked out by the overwhelming force. Gojo, though victorious, didn't wear the expression of an indifferent conqueror. Instead, he looked down at Kenzo's unconscious form with a mix of pride and contemplation. "Good effort, Kenzo," Gojo muttered, a hint of approval in his voice. He then paused, considering the growth he witnessed in his student. The white-haired sorcerer reached down, lifting Kenzo's body with ease, a subtle acknowledgement of the potential he saw. Gojo materialized in front of Shoko, cradling Kenzo's unconscious body in his hands. Shoko's eyes widened in disbelief, registering the battered state of Gojo and the unconscious form he carried. Her expression was a mix of surprise and concern, silently questioning whether Gojo had truly needed to unleash such intensity upon Kenzo. As Gojo gently laid Kenzo down, Shoko, watching Gojo disappear with a bemused shake of her head, muttered under her breath, "Really, Gojo?" She sighed, contemplating the enigmatic nature of the man. "Guess I need a smoke break," Shoko declared, her tone a mix of exhaustion and amusement. With a heavy exhale, she focused her attention on Kenzo, who lay unconscious on the ground, still recovering from the intense battle. Time skip. As Kenzo stirred back to consciousness, he found himself surrounded by a surreal digital landscape. A luminous blue screen materialized before him, displaying the cryptic message, "Survive 25% Gojo." Description: You have decided to fight the strongest sorcerer of today. Survive against a 25% power Gojo Satoru. Reward: 25 million exp. 10 high-grade potions. All skill gets upgraded. Skill armor constructions has been acquired. The user has learned more about their innate techniques. Every job-related skills have been upgraded. As Kenzo's vision cleared, the unfamiliar room unfolded before him like a mysterious canvas. His eyes, adjusting to the surroundings, soon locked onto the presence of a tall woman. Her silhouette was framed by long, brown hair cascading in a graceful ponytail, reaching past her shoulders. Soft brown eyes, marked with a touch of weariness, gazed intently, accentuated by a mole beneath her right eye. Thick, expressive eyebrows added character to her features. Adorned in a white lab coat, she exuded an air of professionalism over a blue turtleneck sweater. The deep navy blue pants gracefully tapered just above her ankles, while cream-colored high-heeled shoes completed her ensemble. A sense of quiet authority emanated from her presence, leaving Kenzo to wonder about the nature of this place and the role she might play in it. A sense of quiet authority emanated from her presence, leaving Kenzo to wonder about the nature of this place and the role she might play in it. "Oh, you up, kid?" she said upon noticing he was awake. "Who are you?" Kenzo said upon seeing her. "I'm Shoko Iiri, the school nurse," she responded, her expression a blend of concern and curiosity. "Thanks for the healing, Shoko," Kenzo said, acknowledging her help. Shoko shrugged nonchalantly. "No problem, kid. Just doing my job." Kenzo nodded in gratitude, appreciating the unexpected healing. "Just don't get beaten again," Shoko remarked, giving Kenzo a stern look. Kenzo, eager to assess the newfound skill he acquired during his intense battle with Gojo, decided to put his armor creation abilities to the test. The skill appeared promising, showing a subtle but noticeable improvement. Intrigued, he carefully summoned the armor, examining its details with a discerning eye. The creation skill manifested a decent level of craftsmanship, with intricate details woven into the armor's design. The material seemed robust, suggesting a significant upgrade from Kenzo's previous capabilities. As he inspected the armor, he noted its resilience and the way it seamlessly adhered to his body, providing both protection and flexibility. Synthesizing has been activated. Does the user wish to synthesize their armor? Description: By synthesizing an item into this skill, you gain all the buff while in this form. The ambient hum of energy filled the realm as Kenzo contemplated the decision before him. The option to synthesize his armor hung in the air like a pivotal quest prompt in a video game. The virtual menu shimmered, awaiting his choice. With a sense of anticipation, Kenzo pondered the potential enhancements that the synthesis process could bestow upon his already impressive armor. Would it fortify the protective layers, imbue it with elemental resistances, or perhaps grant him an entirely new set of abilities? Faced with the option to spend his hard-earned cash on the coveted anti-armor Gojo armor, Kenzo couldn't help but entertain the tantalizing notion of gaining a strategic edge over his formidable sensei. The allure of a passive ability that could potentially bypass Gojo's infamous infinity technique hung in the air, a tempting prospect for a warrior hungry for victory. As he contemplated the purchase, a clash of emotions played out within Kenzo. On one hand, the practical strategist in him saw the potential benefits of such an investment. a calculated move to gain the upper hand in future encounters with Gojo. The prospect of outsmarting and surpassing his sensei fueled his determination. Yet, an undercurrent of pettiness tugged at Kenzo's conscience. Was he willing to part with thousands of gold, not just for the strategic advantage, driven by a deep-seated desire to assert dominance over Gojo? The cost seemed steep, but the allure of triumph and the sweet taste of victory fueled Kenzo's internal debate. He opened a dungeon. It was time for him to grind for his armor. Description: a formidable dungeon, the ominous abode of malevolent beings, and the dark sanctuary of demons. The dungeon's presence echoed with an aura of ancient malevolence, its imposing structure standing as a testament to the malefic forces that called it home. Towering spires, adorned with grotesque carvings, pierced the shadowed skyline, creating an eerie silhouette against the dim light that struggled to penetrate its foreboding exterior. As Kenzo scrutinized the dungeon key, he could almost feel the pulsating malevolence emanating from within. The key's surface bore etchings that seemed to writhe and twist, mirroring the sinister energy that permeated the very air surrounding it. The gateway to this accursed realm hinted at a subterranean labyrinth, its passages winding into the depths where unspeakable horrors lay in wait. The very stones beneath the key seemed to resonate with a haunting symphony of whispered secrets, forewarning intrepid adventurers of the perilous journey that awaited them. The demons that called this place home were shrouded in darkness, their existence veiled in mystery. Legends spoke of ruthless overlords, each more terrifying than the last, presiding over realms of despair and chaos within the dungeon's infernal depths. He then went to the shop where he decided to buy a lot of stuff. You have brought a heavenly sword. You have brought the heavenly armor. User has 5,000 gold left. Would you like to synthesize in order to upgrade the user armor creation? Without a moment's hesitation, Kenzo pressed yes. His earlier pettiness seemed a trivial concern in the face of the resounding defeat he had endured. It served as a stark reminder of the gaps in his abilities that needed urgent filling. Determined not to remain stagnant, Kenzo resolved to grind his newly acquired synthesis skill to the maximum. Alongside it, he pledged to elevate his domain expansion to unprecedented heights. The echoes of Gojo's overpowering 25% still beating his ass resonated within him, a motivating force compelling him to bridge the chasm that separated their strengths. The sting of defeat fueled his ambition as he refused to accept a reality where Gojo could effortlessly best him. The countless potential losses that could have befallen him gnawed at his pride, spurring him to action. Embracing a multifaceted approach, Kenzo envisioned growing his army. Shadow's soldiers, with their elusive and formidable nature, would be the vanguard of his forces. To bolster their ranks, he contemplated the recruitment of special-grade curses, entities whose malevolence and power could tip the scales in his favor. In this crucible of determination and growth, Kenzo forged a path forward. The virtual realm became a training ground, and the synthesis of heavenly artifacts marked the beginning of a transformative journey. With a resolute spirit, he vowed to emerge stronger, assembling the tools and forces necessary to confront the challenges that lay ahead. As Kenzo turned the key in the lock, the dungeon's gateway creaked open, revealing a sight that sent shivers down his spine. Stepping through the threshold, he found himself in an abandoned city, a desolate landscape frozen in the grip of decay. The once bustling metropolis now lay in ruins, a haunting testament to the relentless passage of time and the malevolence that had gripped this forsaken place. Broken skyscrapers jutted out like skeletal remnants of a forgotten era, their shattered windows reflecting a fractured skyline against the overcast heavens. Nature, relentless in its reclamation, had woven its tendrils through the concrete and steel. Vines crawled up the sides of dilapidated buildings, their emerald foliage contrasting sharply with the muted tones of decay. Trees, born from the seeds of neglect, stood tall amidst the ruins, their roots intertwining with the remnants of man-made structures. The streets, once bustling with life, now lay in disarray. Cracked pavement and twisted metal lay scattered, and the echoes of footsteps that had long faded were replaced by an eerie silence. Abandoned vehicles, covered in a shroud of dust and rust, lined the desolate roads like relics frozen in time. The air carried a heavy stillness, broken only by the occasional creaking of decaying structures and the distant rustle of leaves stirred by an unseen breeze. As Kenzo walked through the skeletal remains of the city, he couldn't shake the feeling of being an intruder in a place where life had once thrived. Yet, amidst the desolation, signs of rebirth emerged. Nature, tenacious in its resurgence, painted a tapestry of green amidst the grays and browns of urban decay. Wildflowers pushed through cracks in the pavement, reclaiming the ground inch by inch. The city, though ravaged, bore witness to the cyclical dance of destruction and renewal. As Kenzo stepped through the portal, the air crackled with malevolent energy, and before he could fully comprehend his surroundings, a horde of demonic beings lunged at him with ferocious intent. The twisted forms, with eyes ablaze and menacing features, closed in on him. Yet, instead of fear, a confident smile played on Kenzo's lips. With a swift motion, he reached into his inventory, drawing forth a gleaming dagger that seemed to resonate with a subtle power. The blade caught the ambient light, casting an ethereal glow as Kento locked eyes with the demonic assailants. "This is going to be a slaughter," he declared, his voice carrying a mix of assurance and anticipation. The demons, momentarily taken aback by his fearless demeanor, hesitated as if sensing the impending clash with a formidable adversary. In that charged moment, Kenzo stood as a lone warrior, ready to face the onslaught of demonic forces. The dagger, an extension of his determination, gleamed with the promise of a battle that would unfold in the shadowy depths of the Forsaken City. The dance of combat was about to commence, and Kenzo, undaunted, embraced the challenge with a warrior's resolve. The portal's eerie glow framed the impending clash, and with a calculated step forward, he plunged into the fray, the dagger in hand and the echoes of impending slaughter reverberating through the accursed realm. Name: Demon. Class: Warrior. Level: 80. Health: 20,375 mana. 84-0. Vitality: 175. Intelligence: 80. Sense: 14. Agility: 120. Strength: 200. "Who are you and what are you doing in our land?" the demonic creature asked, and that alone seemed to stun Kenzo. He didn't expect them to be able to speak. So far all he had met were barbarians who didn't know any better. Kenzo was about to reply when his senses told him to move his head to the right, to which he obeyed. And did. A blade covered in some weird substance that smelled of death flew past his head. Kenzo looked at the blade before turning around to notice that he was surrounded by that demonic creature. They were all around them and seemed to be ready to hunt. Kenzo smiled before opening his mouth and saying, "Why should to people that are going to die anyway?" This little taunt seems to anger some of them while it seems to barely affect some other. "You think a mere human can kill us? Don't make me laugh," the demonic demon in front of him said, to which Kenzo just smiled. "We will put your head on a stake and burn your body when this is over. This disrespect shall not stand," another demon said, to which Kenzo just smiled before saying, "Then do it. You must be one of the crazy humans. You are surrounded and yet you still act brave. I can't tell if you are just stupid or brave," the demon said, picking up what seemed to be a giant axe from the floor. "I think y'all got this wrong. I am not surrounded." "You are," Kenzo said, as all around them, a bunch of shadow soldiers started to appear all around them. The demon looks around to see the soldier before readying up their weapon and getting ready for a full-on battle. "Leave none of them alive," Kenzo said, and as soon as those words were said, the land started to be painted in red as Kenzo sat on a nearby rock watching his soldier absolutely slaughtered his soon-to-be underling. It was a brutal sight indeed, but he had grown used to it. He had grown to saying such gore after going through multiple dungeons and killing multiple monsters. He just put them in the back of his mind before checking his domain. Something about it seemed off. Name: Monarch Domain incomplete. Description: Monarch Domain, a work in progress, represents an embryonic stage in the evolution of an advanced barrier technique within the realm of Jujutsu sorcery. It stands as a testament to the user's journey toward mastering the pinnacle of cursed techniques, a manifestation of their innate domain within an infused barrier. Inside this nascent domain, the user's cursed techniques undergo a profound enhancement, ensuring the unfaltering impact of any activated abilities. Effect: within the Monarch Domain, a formidable barrier envelops the user and their summoned entities, bestowing a monumental boost to all of their abilities. This enhancement extends to the user's summons, turning them into formidable allies within the confines of the domain. Moreover, the user gains the ability to teleport freely throughout the domain, enabling strategic maneuvering and the potential to switch places with adversaries. Notably, the user possesses the unique capability to manipulate the trajectory of their attacks, allowing them to surprise opponents with unpredictable assault angles. Warning: despite its promising potential, the Monarch Domain is currently in a state of fragility and incompleteness. The exterior of the domain is alarmingly susceptible to external attacks, making it imperative for the user to exercise caution. Kenzo stared at the description and sighed to himself. His domain seemed very fragile right now. He needed to find a way to strengthen it. He has a decent amount of knowledge about barrier technique and knows how a domain expansion works. "Kill everything in this dungeon, and come back to me with the loot," Kenzo said to his shadow soldier who bowed to him. "Igris, you are the leader of this operation," Kenzo added, to which Igris bowed to him before saying, "Yes, my lord." Kenzo looked at the corpse of the demon on the floor before opening his mouth and saying arise. As soon as those words left his mouth, a black and blue aura emanated from the corpse of each of the corpses, and from the corpses, a figure emerged in each and every single one of them. It looked like an identical copy of them, just in blue and black. You have obtained 15 warrior demon. You have obtained 5 arcane mage. You have obtained 1 demonic general. Give him a name. Kenzo looked at the demonic being before saying Malgrim the Abyssal Commander. He went with this name as this place was just an abyss and Malgrim seemed like a fitting name. You take charge of your demonic warrior and go the opposite direction of Igris. Do remember that you need to listen to Igris if it comes down to it, Kenzo said, to which Malgrim just nodded. He bowed deeply before Kenzo opened his mouth saying then disperse. As soon as those words left his mouth, they all vanished from his sight and Kenzo was left to his own accord. Kenzo sighed before interlocking his finger together and focusing deeply. Domain expansion, Shadow Monarch Domain. Kenzo said as he opened his domain. A barrier appeared all around him as the domain started to form, but Kenzo focused on mainly reinforcing the domain as it was being formed. The domain was being formed very slowly, but Kenzo didn't mind. He was using his knowledge of barrier technique in order to reinforce his domain. A domain expansion was supposed to be a person's ultimate technique, and yet his domain would break if a pebble were to hit it very hard from the outside. This was embarrassing though. He was imagining it now. Him fighting for his life. He expanded his domain and a pebble fell on it from the outside, breaking his domain. That would be embarrassing, Kenzo thought. Focus, Kenzo. Focus, Kenzo said as he started to reinforce his domain further. He started to feel like his brain was being damaged, and to mitigate the damage he just drank a potion of healing. It healed his brain. Yes, but he could still feel his brain slowly frying. After a solid 5 minutes, his domain broke on his own, leaving Kenzo with a severe migraine. His mana took a toll from the heavy domain tool, but that was not something that a few mana potions along with a few health potions couldn't fix. After a solid 5 more minutes, he was fine and ready to go again. This time, instead of directly opening his domain, he just created a barrier. The heck was he speaking about? The domain was already a goddamn barrier technique. To be more exact, what he did was to make a domain expansion just without the innate technique nor the sure hit. Just a barrier. Just a barrier where he himself was the only person in it. He could interact with everything inside the barrier, but he couldn't exactly take what was in the barrier and bring it outside as it was just there because he made it. This domain shit was stressing out his brain a bit. If it wasn't for his intelligence stats, his brain would have fried a bit as he had to make all the calculations in his head. The way to refine a domain is to know the true essence of curse energy in your own technique. That what he got from it, at least. From what he could tell, the more in sync someone was with their curse technique and the more they understood curse energy and the truth essence of Jujutsu, the better their domain was. Sure, knowledge about barrier technique helps, but he felt like those other two were a big factor. At the end of the day, you just make a barrier and imbue your innate technique into it. That was a domain expansion. Without your innate technique, the barrier would just be that ... just a barrier. And he is not that knowledgeable, so cut him some slacks. The thing is that all of this info was fairly simple. Kenzo didn't possess curse energy, but something similar to it ... He possessed mana. Something that seems like the opposite of curse energy, as curse energy comes from negative emotion, and mana seems to come from Mother Nature. Seem being the key word for mana has a refreshing feeling to it that curse energy doesn't have. It feels like the complete opposite of curse energy. They were like yin and yang. And he doesn't know how to reverse technique feel like for obvious reasons. They were quite similar on some level though, as he could do what curse energy could, but most of the time it was better. To him personally, mana was the better, but that may be his bias as he has mana. From what he could gather about Sukuna, he was a calamity, a true monster that cared about no one but himself. A demon, you may say, a fallen creature that shouldn't exist. And yet he still was the strongest thing to exist back in the Heian era, and that gave him a clue about curse energy ... That shit was dark, and unlike humans, it seemed to have no morals. It seems as if the more arrogant someone was, the stronger they would be, which seems to check out. Gojo check of that box, and he was an arrogant fuck. Though, unlike Sukuna, he won't kill you for merely existing near him. He would tease you though, goddamn manchild. Although he does feel like there is loneliness being the only one at the top. He, for example, loved the thrill of a fight, and because Gojo exists he get to fight someone that's stronger than him at least 3 times a week. Sure, he lose, but that is not bad. At least he is enjoying it. Gojo, on the other hand, is just at the top. No one came close to him, and unless Kenzo was given a full year to train, he wouldn't catch up to him anytime soon. He must feel so empty inside, having all that power, but being unable to do much about it. It must have been an infinite void. Unlike Sukuna, he doesn't seem to possess that violent tendency, although Kenzo could feel the craziness hiding beneath that mask of tranquility. Kenzo sighed to himself, getting he had to spend time with the white-haired man. He may not say it out loud, but Gojo was his sensei, and he refused to let him stay alone. He should probably do some research about Gojo. His resolve to help his sensei increase when he realizes that Gojo's infinity seemed like the perfect representation of how the thing was right now. Between Gojo and everyone else, there was an infinite gap. Why does this man seem to keep people so far away from him? I will cross that goddamn gap, Kenzo said as he looked at his hands. He was Gojo's strongest student, and he refused to let his sensei drown in his misery. He would beat this blindfolded idiot if he had to. Although right now he stood no chance, he just needed a boost in skill, not power. He could keep up with Gojo, and with his buff he could be considered faster and stronger physically. That shit, however, doesn't matter to Gojo, as his goddamn infinity negated that advantage. He just needed skill. A lot of it, and mastery over those skills. Kenzo sighed to himself before breaking the barrier that he had made. Skill domain expansion has been upgraded. Kenzo looked at the description and didn't mind that it changed from the ordinary. He had just set himself a goal and he was about to reach it no matter what challenge came in his way. As soon as the barrier was close, Kenzo saw all of his shadow soldiers bowing to him, presenting him with all they had gathered. Kenzo looked at everything before looking back at his shadow soldier and saying, "Good job, y'all can come back now." They all bowed before all returning to his shadow once again. Quest: easing Gojo's solitude. Description: unveiling a hidden facet of your revered teacher, Satoru Gojo. You've learned of his loneliness at the pinnacle of strength. Driven by empathy and a desire to support him, you've made it your personal mission to delve into Gojo's past, seeking to understand the roots of his isolation. Embark on a journey to unravel the layers of the enigmatic Gojo, and provide companionship where it is needed. Reward: Black Heart, a rare artifact pulsating with otherworldly energy, said to hold the essence of death itself. Title: the strongest student of Satoru Gojo, a prestigious title acknowledging your prowess in connection to the mighty sorcerer himself. 5 health potions, potions crafted to restore vitality and mend wounds swiftly. 5 mana potions, elixirs designed to replenish magical energy and enhance arcane abilities. Gain Gojo's favor, a token of acknowledgement from Gojo himself, unlocking potential opportunities and strengthening your bond with the revered teacher. Kenzo looked at the reward before he smiled brightly. This would be fun, and that just motivated him to try his best. Time to help his sensei. Pav change. Satoru Gojo sank into the plush confines of his chair, the weight of his solitude pressing upon him. Lost in a cascade of thoughts, he gazed at his hands, each finger bearing the weight of the formidable power he wielded. The room around him seemed to fade into the background as the currents of introspection took hold. Gojo's mind retraced the steps of the recent spar with Kenzo, a fleeting yet impactful encounter that had left an imprint on his memory. As he revisited the clash in the training grounds, the vivid recollection of Kenzo's blows struck a chord of realization within him. Gojo had a smile on his face as he thought of that. The sensation of being touched, of feeling the impact of an opponent's strikes, echoed in Gojo's contemplation. He truly grows fast, Gojo said with a smile on his face. He was genuinely excited about the thought of actually having a challenge somewhere in the future. The creaking of the door drew Satoru Gojo's attention away from his contemplation. His eyes shifted toward the entrance, and there, framed in the doorway, stood Kenzo, his student, a figure of both curiosity and unwavering determination. Gojo, leaning back in his chair with an easygoing smile, looked at Kenzo with a glint of mischief in his eyes. Well, if it isn't my favorite student interrupting my profound thoughts. What brings you to my humble abode, Kenzo? His tone carried the trademark nonchalance, a mixture of amusement and the underlying confidence that defined Gojo's personality. He gestured dramatically to the room as if inviting Kenzo to join in the apparent intellectual pondering. Did you come seeking the wisdom of the almighty Satoru Gojo, or are you here to challenge me to another round of sparring? Either way, you know I'm always up for a good time, Gojo added, a playful glimmer in his eyes as he awaited Kenzo's response. I want to learn more about, because so far all I know about you is that you are the strongest and that you are very annoying. I want to know more about Gojo Satoru, not the strongest Jujutsu sorcerer, Kenzo said, looking at his sensei. Gojo's trademark smirk wavered for a moment, replaced by a subtle expression of surprise. He regarded Kenzo with a raised eyebrow, as if contemplating the rarity of such a request. "Ah, Kenzo, my inquisitive student," Gojo responded, a glint of intrigue returning to his eyes. "You want to know more about me, huh? Well, brace yourself for the thrilling tales of Satoru Gojo beyond the realm of Jujutsu superiority." He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, his gaze locked onto Kenzo. I have all the time in the world. Tell me more, I am interested, Kenzo said as he took a chair and sat down. Gojo chuckled, a mischievous glint in his eyes as he leaned back in his chair. Alright, Kenzo, you asked for it. But don't you think you should give me some snacks for my great storytelling skill? Kenzo smiled before saying, I expected you to say this, because I went to a nearby shop and brought everything. He had a huge grin on his face as he started to pull out food and drinks from his inventory. Gojo smiled a bit upon looking at Kenzo. He then looked at Kenzo and said, if you really want to know then. Then, Kenzo added, to which Gojo took most of the snacks and said, you better work for it. He then vanished from sight, leaving Kenzo alone in the room. Seriously, Gojo? Kenzo chuckled, shaking his head. He settled into his chair, surrounded by the array of snacks, wondering just how much effort Gojo expected from him to extract those elusive tales. The room, once a stage for camaraderie, now bore the silent challenge of a sorcerer's disappearing act. With a determined glint in his eye, Kenzo muttered to himself, alright then, let the quest for Gojo's tales begin. Time skip. It had been a few weeks since he started in his quest to get through to Gojo, and this was his week so far. First try, the infinite hallway. Kenzo entered what seemed like a regular hallway, expecting to find Gojo at the other end. To his frustration, the hallway, under Gojo's influence, stretched infinitely, creating an illusion of endlessness. Each step he took seemed to propel him further into the abyss, leaving Kenzo disoriented and annoyed. Gojo's laughter echoed as Kenzo struggled to navigate the ever-expanding corridor, his initial determination giving way to exasperation. Sixth try, the illusory banquet. In an attempt to get Gojo talking, Kenzo set up a lavish banquet with an array of delicious dishes, hoping to entice his sensei into sharing stories. However, Gojo, being the master of barrier technique, turned the feast into a mirage. The tantalizing aroma and vivid colors of the food were nothing but an illusions, leaving Kenzo to grumble in frustration as he reached for plates that were never there, while Gojo ate the actual food somewhere else. 12th try, the invisible chair. Kenzo, determined to hear the stories, set up a cozy seating arrangement and invited Gojo to sit. However, Gojo's cheeky interference made it impossible for him to sit. Each time Kenzo attempted to sit, he found himself tumbling to the floor, his irritation growing with each failed attempt. Gojo, watching from the shadows, couldn't help but chuckle at Kenzo's predicament. The thing Gojo could do with his ability. 20 try, the mirage of silence. Thinking a quiet environment might encourage Gojo to open up, Kenzo created an illusion of a serene landscape. However, Gojo made a barrier that overlapped Kenzo's barrier where he manipulated the very air, distorting sound waves and creating an illusion of absolute silence. Kenzo, expecting a heartfelt conversation, found himself in a surreal world of quietness, unable to hear his own thoughts. The silence, far from comforting, grated on Kenzo's nerves. 30 try, the time warp tea party. In a last-ditch effort, Kenzo arranged a traditional tea ceremony, hoping the calming atmosphere would coax Gojo into sharing. Unbeknownst to Kenzo, Gojo introduced a time warp element, causing minutes to stretch into hours whenever Kenzo lifted his cup. What seemed like a brief sip turned into an eternal tea-drinking saga, leaving Kenzo to question the very fabric of time itself and his patience wearing thin. Throughout these scenarios, Kenzo's annoyance grew, yet he couldn't help but appreciate the cleverness behind each challenge. The quest for Gojo's tales turned into a labyrinth of frustration, a testament to the sorcerer's ability to keep even his most determined student on his toes. This is utter nonsense, Kenzo seethed, his expression contorted with anger. The constant challenges and whimsical scenarios had pushed him to the brink of frustration. Gojo's elusive antics had transformed the quest for tales into a maddening labyrinth of irritation. Gritting his teeth, Kenzo summoned a pulsating blue orb into his hands, a manifestation of his pent-up frustration and determination to break through Gojo's whimsical barriers. The orb hummed with energy, reflecting Kenzo's resolve to put an end to the infuriating game. Is Kenzo-kun angry? Gojo's voice, laced with amusement, cut through the air. He wore a sly smile, the mischievous glint in his eyes undeterred by Kenzo's evident irritation. The white-haired sorcerer seemed to revel in the chaos he had orchestrated, his nonchalant demeanor contrasting with the mounting anger in Kenzo's expression. The room crackled with tension as the blue orb in Kenzo's hands pulsed with restrained power. The confrontation reached a precipice, a clash between student and teacher, frustration and amusement, in the enigmatic space they shared. Let's play a game of basketball, and if I win, you tell me what I came here for, Kenzo said, looking at Gojo, to which Gojo smiled. Gojo's smile widened at Kenzo's proposition, the mischievous glint in his eyes undiminished. A game of basketball, huh? That's an interesting choice, Kenzo-kun. You're on. The room transformed, the surroundings shifting to create a makeshift basketball court. A hoop materialized at one end, and the stage was set for an unconventional clash between sorcerer and student. Kenzo now realized that this man Gojo's barrier technique was top-notch, as he was able to make so many different barriers with so much ease. Although none of those barriers would work in a fight if they weren't a domain expansion ... That was Kenzo's opinion of them as of now, and it wasn't changing anytime soon. And Hakari, am I a joke to you? Kenzo, determined to break through Gojo's enigmatic barriers, took a basketball that seemingly appeared out of nowhere. The tension between them, once fraught with frustration, now found an outlet in the upcoming game. The court, a symbolic arena for their clash, awaited the clash of skill and strategy. As Kenzo prepared to make his move, Gojo, still wearing that trademark smile, assumed a casual stance. The basketball game, a departure from the sorcery-laden challenges, became a unique battleground for the clash of wills. Let the game begin, Kenzo-kun, Gojo declared, the anticipation palpable in the air. The basketball echoed against the court, marking the commencement of a duel where victory held the promise of revelations and the defeat promised more whimsical escapades. The stage was set, and the game unfolded in the surreal space where basketball and sorcery intertwined. Kenzo grabbed a basketball and started to bounce it on the floor as he slowly approached Gojo. Kenzo's footsteps echoed in the makeshift basketball court as he approached Gojo, the rhythmic bounce of the basketball punctuating the tense atmosphere. The white-haired sorcerer observed with a glint of interest in his eyes, the playful smile still lingering on his lips. As Kenzo neared, he deftly dribbled the ball, each bounce a testament to his determination. The court, a surreal blend of the magical and the mundane, framed the impending clash between student and teacher in the language of a basketball duel. Gojo, hands in his pockets, remained nonchalant, the very picture of relaxed confidence. His gaze followed the trajectory of the bouncing ball, and for a moment, the room became an arena where the clash of skills promised both victory and the unveiling of sought-after secrets. The tension mounted with each step, the anticipation of the impending game underscoring the unspoken challenge between mentor and student. The basketball, a vessel for their clash, seemed to carry the weight of the stories Kenzo sought, bouncing in sync with the rhythm of a duel that extended beyond the realm of Jujutsu sorcery. Kenzo lay sprawled on the floor, panting heavily, the exertion of the basketball game evident in the beads of sweat that dripped from his fatigued form. The makeshift court bore witness to the intensity of the clash between student and teacher, the echoes of their game fading into the charged air. His gaze shifted to the scoreboard, and a heavy cringe contorted Kenzo's features. The numbers on the board, a stark representation of the outcome, revealed the toll the game had taken on him. The score told a story of skill, strategy, and perhaps a touch of Gojo's whimsical prowess. Gojo, with that ever-present smile, approached the exhausted student. Well, Kenzo-kun, it seems the victory is mine today, he remarked, his tone playful yet acknowledging the effort Kento had put into the game. Status recovery has been used. Kenzo stood back up looking as if he wasn't tired to begin with. He then looked at Gojo before saying, "What are you talking about? I am still standing and I have more than enough energy to beat you in basketball." Kenzo's sudden resurgence, standing as if fatigue had never touched him, drew an intrigued arch of Gojo's eyebrow. The white-haired sorcerer couldn't help but be impressed by the resilience displayed by his student. "Oh, is that so, Kenzo-kun?" Gojo replied, his playful smile widening. "I must say, I'm impressed. Ready for round 2, are we?" Kenzo continued to play the match a bit uncaring about the final score. He had a small idea to use his ability to cheat, but that didn't sit well with him. What was the point of using it and getting overpowered once again? He didn't want this to become another battle of strength, and he didn't want that. He would beat his sensei in due time, but for now he wanted to actually get to see another side of his sensei instead of the cocky one. At this point he had even forgotten about the quest. All he wanted to do was to reach out to his sensei. Time skip. Gojo somehow find it easier to bond with Kenzo. Something about his ability to control the enemy he had defeated somehow made it easy for him to bond with him. As Kenzo maneuvered on the court, attempting to get past his sensei, a sudden image flashed in Gojo's mind. The mental portrait depicted a tall, slim figure with long black hair, artfully tied behind the head while the remaining strands cascaded gracefully down the back. This mysterious individual bore small, enigmatic black eyes, occasionally obscured by bangs that gracefully framed the left side of the face. The man's earlobes, prominently adorned with large circular earrings, hinted at a touch of unconventional style. His hair, though shorter than the iconic white mane associated with Gojo, retained a distinctive allure with most of it elegantly gathered, yet the bangs remained, retaining a certain prominence in the overall aesthetic. This mental image, a brief yet vivid glimpse, seemed to linger in Gojo's thoughts as he continued to engage in the basketball match with Kenzo. The mysterious figure, a fragment of memory or perhaps a fleeting vision from the past. Kenzo's ability reminded him of him. Gojo smiled a bit before suddenly sighing a bit. This was going to be very fun. Oh, Kenzo-kun, do you still have the fingers? Gojo inquired, undoing his barrier. In response, Kenzo merely looked up at Gojo and replied, yeah, they're still in my inventory. May I have them back? Gojo asked, his gaze fixed on Kenzo. In return, Kenzo questioned, why? Oh, the higher-ups just want to have them in a more secure place, Gojo explained, a wry smile playing on his lips. Those old geezers just don't like the fact that they're not in control. I didn't take you for the kind of man to listen to them, Kenzo remarked, looking at Gojo. In response, Gojo shrugged, saying, I felt like being nice. If I may ask, what are they going to do with it? Kenzo inquired, studying Gojo's expression. Gojo replied casually, I am technically supposed to hand it over to them in a week's time, but I would much prefer doing that after Halloween. So you'll just keep them on you until Halloween is over. Yeah, that seems safe, Kenzo conceded, a hint of resignation in his tone. He then pulled out the fingers from his inventory, seemingly acquiescing to Gojo's decision. By the way, do you need the curse womb? Kenzo asked, pulling out the 3 curse wombs from his inventory. As Kenzo pulled out the curse womb from his inventory, an immediate and peculiar connection seemed to form between him and the macabre entities. They exuded an eerie aura, a delicate equilibrium between life and death, as if suspended in a state of paradoxical existence. The curse wombs, seemingly alive yet unmistakably devoid of life, resonated with an otherworldly energy. Their presence created an unsettling ambience, leaving Kenzo with a profound sense of the delicate balance they maintained between the realms of the living and the deceased. Oh, you can do whatever you want with those, Gojo said in a dismissive tone, seemingly unconcerned about the significance of the curse wombs. Aren't they very important and all? Kenzo questioned, to which Gojo simply responded with a nonchalant, and what do you mean, and why could you possibly dismiss them so easily? Kenzo questioned, studying Gojo's nonchalant demeanor. In response, Gojo simply replied, let's see how your ability works. Kenzo gazed intently at the curse womb in his hands, contemplating Gojo's cryptic request. Without hesitation, he tightened his grip, and the curse wombs crumpled within his hands. As the eerie entities succumbed to his strength, blood began to seep from Kenzo's hands, adding a visceral and unsettling element to the act. The crimson liquid oozed between his fingers, creating a macabre tableau that bore witness to the intertwining forces at play. Arise, Kenzo commanded, and from the remnants of the crushed curse wombs emerged 3 shadowy figures. These ethereal entities took form before him, standing as silent manifestations of the sorcerer's command. The black, shadowy figures hovered in front of Kenzo, their inscrutable forms exuding an otherworldly aura. The first shadowy figure materialized into a tall, well-built man with jet black hair and piercing violet eyes with dark sclere. Adorned with thin eyebrows, 2 stud piercings accentuated them. The most distinctive and unsettling feature on his form was a large, bloody face on his back. With sunken eyes, a noseless countenance, and a lipless, open mouth adorned with long, sharp teeth, it exuded an air of macabre horror. Beside him, the second figure took shape. Turquoise in color, it bore a hunchbacked silhouette, its claws extending ominously. 2 mouths, both lined with jagged teeth, added to its grotesque appearance. A small face adorned the upper part of its head, while a giant mouth gaped just beneath it. Dark blood dripped from its eyes and both mouths, creating an unsettling tableau of eerie malevolence. The room, bathed in the shadowy presence of these entities, seemed to resonate with the unnatural energies harnessed by Kenzo. The 2 figures stood, silent emissaries of the sorcerer's command, awaiting further instructions in their spectral forms. Lastly, Kenzo's gaze fell upon the third shadowy figure, appearing more humane than its eerie counterparts. The entity manifested as a predominantly human figure with long, stringy black hair tied into 2 high ponytails that extended upward and outward. His features included small dark purple eyes with slightly thin eyebrows. What set him apart was a distinctive blood mark that extended from both sides of his face across the bridge of his nose, adding an element of mystery and intrigue to his appearance. The figure stood with an air of somberness, a semblance of humanity intertwined with the shadowy essence that defined its existence. The trio of shadowy entities, each with its unique and unsettling characteristics, formed a silent assembly before Kenzo. Cool, Gojo remarked, slightly adjusting his blindfold as he observed the shadow soldiers summoned by Kenzo. Kenzo examined the stats of the shortest shadow soldier, named Kichizu, and found them to be underwhelming. Name: Kichizu. Description: Kichizu is one of 9 death painting wombs that came from a woman capable of giving birth to cursed spirit children. At some point, Kichizu and his brothers were stored at Jujutsu High along with some of Sukuna's fingers. Level times 35. Health times 21. Cursed energy C times 10,000. Cursed technique CT, Rot technique. Strength times 20, agility times 20, intelligence times 30, vitality times 20, luck minus 30. Kenzo frowned as he reviewed the statistics, noting that Kichizu's attributes were indeed underwhelming. He was however intrigued by the new options, and he wanted to believe that everything has a use and can be used if the user know how to use it properly. So with his newfound curiosity, Kenzo clicked on the description to learn more about the Rot technique. Rot technique: Kichizu can manipulate his body's corrosive blood, which is capable of poisoning his targets. He generally does so by spewing blasts of rotten blood at his opponents, burning their flesh on impact. Decay infects the target with a floral pattern that decomposes the body with a special poison. Anyone hit by Kichizu's blood can be infected with this technique even if he isn't the one who activated it. Kenzo turned his attention to the second shadow soldier, named Iso, and assessed its stats. Name: Iso. Description: Iso is one of 9 death painting wombs that came from a woman capable of giving birth to cursed spirit children. At some point, Iso and his brothers were stored at Jujutsu High along with some of Sukuna's fingers. Level 55. Health 3150. Cursed energy C 11,000. Cursed technique CT, Rot technique. Strength 20, agility 30. Intelligence 50, vitality 30. Luck minus 35. Comparing Iso's stats to Kichizu's, Kenzo noted a considerable increase in level and overall attributes. The enhanced agility, intelligence, and vitality suggested a more formidable shadow soldier. Kenzo blinked in realization that both Kichizu and Iso shared the same cursed technique CT name, Rot technique. However, he found himself indifferent to this repetition. In fact, he saw it as a convenient advantage. He also doesn't care that they already have a name because that just meant that he didn't assign them individual names to each and every single shadow soldier spared him the effort. And the fact that they retained their original names seemed like a convenient and practical arrangement. Kenzo delved into the details of Iso's Rot technique, discovering its similarities and distinctions from Kichizu's. Rot technique: Iso's innate technique grants him corrosive blood that can poison and decompose his target. It also grants him the ability to reshape and manipulate his blood using special techniques. Iso's blood is said to be more effective than Kichizu's. Maximum Wing King reshapes the blood flowing out of Iso's back into wasp-shaped wings. These wings grant Iso more mobility as well as a way to attack with lines of blood from long range. Decay infects anyone touched by Iso or Kichizu's blood with a floral pattern that decomposes the target's body with a special poison. Kenzo looked at the abilities for a bit before finally looking at the last brother. Considering it looked like the most human and the least deformed, he probably got further into his life as a fetus in the womb than his brothers. Kenzo finally opened the stat window for the last brother. Kenzo shifted his attention to the third shadow soldier, named Choso, and examined its stats. Name: Choso. Description: Choso is one of 9 death painting wombs that came from a woman capable of giving birth to cursed spirit children. At some point, Choso and his brothers were stored at Jujutsu High along with some of Sukuna's fingers. Level 72. Health 42. Cursed energy C 20,000. Cursed technique CT, blood manipulation. Strength 30, agility 50. Intelligence 80, vitality 40. Luck minus 80. Those were good stats and everything. Those stats were amazing even, but 3 punches from Yuji could fold this dude like an omelet, so he probably was not the tanky type but had more skill to shoot from afar. Kenzo clicked on his CT. The grin on Kenzo's face couldn't get wider. Slicing exorcism unleashes sharpened blood that rapidly flies through the air and slices through Choso's target, capable of shaping it into long streams of blood at a wide range for hitting or forming it into a rotating chakram for a singular attack. Convergence compresses and condenses the blood to its absolute limit with cursed energy. He charging up for Choso's most powerful attacks, Piercing blood and supernova. Piercing blood. A deadly blood beam fired from Choso's clasped hands after charging up convergence. Possesses blistering speed and incredible piercing power. Choso can bend the beam and make it ricochet, though it loses extreme velocity after the initial shot. Supernova. A Choso original developed after honing blood manipulation for 150 years. Detonates several orbs of blood condensed with convergence and fires reinforced blood bullets in every direction. Can be channeled into one larger sphere that explodes into an even more devastating attack. Blood Edge. Shapes and strengthens blood's lethality by rotating it at high speed, allowing Choso to shape blood outside his body into a dagger. Click this for more. Kenzo had a grin on his face. Oh, is this getting beautiful? And if he were a betting man, he would bet that Choso blood was also poisonous. Yao, Gojo-sensei, how do you feel about poison? Kenzo inquired, looking at Gojo, who responded with a knowing smile, admitting they are very annoying to deal with. Kenzo seized the opportunity to push a bit further, his expression taking on a mischievous edge. So what I'm hearing is that it's hard for you to deal with poison even with RCT, he remarked, a sly grin adorning his face. It might cause me some trouble, Gojo admitted, meeting Kenzo's gaze. Kenzo's grin only widened, relishing in the subtle acknowledgement that even the mighty Gojo had his vulnerabilities, especially when faced with the cunning and unpredictable nature of poisons. Kenzo woke up in the hospital of Jujutsu High. He held his head in pain, wondering how he got there. Then the memory hit him. He had gotten here because of one simple reason. Got beat by Gojo once again. On a good note, now he knows that poison is very effective against Gojo, as it seemed to be harder for him to heal it using RCT. The recollection of the brutal combination of attacks delivered by Gojo lingered in his mind. Dragged on the concrete, subjected to a relentless 55-hit combo to the chest, and finally flung away only to be met with a devastating backshot that he received from a red. The painful memories lingered, and Kenzo couldn't help but recall the sensation of being punched in the face by Gojo, enhanced by the formidable power of the blue technique. The impact had been overwhelming, leaving him on the verge of nausea. However, in the midst of the agony, all he could hear was the laughter, Gojo's laughter, echoing through the one-sided beatdown. Kenzo, lying in the hospital bed and contemplating his recent defeat at the hands of Gojo, recognized the need to enhance his hand-to-hand combat skills and acquire techniques that could level the playing field. The thought occurred to him that if he could incorporate the techniques of his shadow soldiers into his own repertoire, it would undoubtedly elevate his combat prowess. You awake, kid? Shoko said upon noticing that Kenzo was awake. Thank you for healing me, Kenzo said, thanking Shoko for healing him. Don't worry about it, kid, it's my job to do that. Kenzo nodded, to which the woman just say, now that you heal I can finally get my smoke break. She then started to walk away before saying, oh, and by the way, thank you. Confused by the unexpected gratitude, Kenzo pondered what action of his could have prompted such thanks. He racked his memory, trying to discern any significant deed, but nothing stood out to him. The mystery of Shoko's appreciation lingered, leaving Kenzo with a sense of curiosity as he continued to recover in the hospital. Pav change. This way please, Yudahime said, looking toward Gojo. Other students, which consisted of Megumi, Yuji and Nobara. Gojo has informed you all about the mole, right? Yudahime said, looking at them, to which they all replied, yes, we think there are 2 or more people feeding intel to the curse users. One has to be highly ranked, even higher than the principals. I can't do anything about that. The other is someone feeding information to that higher up. Today's target. They are still under suspicion, so after apprehending the suspect we need to conduct an interrogation. Yudahime explained. So it's someone from the Kyoto school, Nobara added. It has to be, since you confided with us from the Tokyo branch, Nobara said, to which Yuji seemed impressed by her ability to understand the situation so quickly. Yudahime stayed quiet as if she didn't want to have this situation come to this. The mole is. The scene shift to a girl with blue hair walking toward the figure of a robot. There you are. Notebooks are due today, she added, walking toward the robot. Nekomaru, she said, looking at the robot while it stayed quiet. Sorry, Miwa. I am going to sleep for a bit. My notebooks are on the desk, Nekomaru said, to which Miwa added. Sleep? But it's still so early. Sheesh. She started to poke his head over and over again, wondering if he was actually sleeping. Meanwhile, Yudahime and Gojo, other 3 students, busted a door open to reveal an empty room. That left only one conclusion. He was the mole. Meanwhile, you sure took your sweet time. I was beginning to think you forgot about me, a man wrapped in bandages said. We wouldn't dare, a man who had scars on his head said. The curse following the man also had stitches, but unlike the man, the stitches weren't only on his head but his whole body. The curse complained of the smell of this place. He is our enemy, why not kill him and be done with it, Mahito said nonchalantly, to which the man replied, not yet, Mahito. We agreed to heal his body with your idol transfiguration in exchange for cooperation and information. We even made a binding vow with him that the killing part can come after you fix him up, the man said with a thoughtful expression on his face. It would have been great to have used him in Shibuya, but oh well, Kenjaku said, shrugging his shoulder a bit. The man in the bandage started to talk about how they broke their side of the promise first, to which Mahito just shrugged. That was Hanami, and he got killed in the process, so it should be even. Kenjaku reprimanded Mahito because of the threat he made about turning the man into a caterpillar, reminding him of the penalty given to anyone who dare break a binding vow. Nothing good ever come out of it. Mahito sighed before using his idol transfiguration to turn the man in bandage into a healthier version of himself. A way healthier version. Boring. How about showing a bit of enthusiasm after getting a new body, Mahito said upon seeing the man lack of reaction. How about I do that after we settle out business, the man said, to which Mahito just smiled before saying, true. That seemed like a better way to show it. Let's begin.